Thank you very much for coming today, Dieudonne. Dieudonne is running for the 2014-2015 presidential elections for the Warwick SU. We've just got a few questions that we just want to ask you, just so that we can find out a little bit more why you want to run. So the very first question, just for a general one, why do you want to run for SU president?
Well, the reason why I want to run for SU president is because I feel like the current SU president and the previous one haven't actually done that much for students.
Okay.
I was reading a comment about the Birmingham protesters, and rather than coming out and supporting students against the universities which are actually oppressing people who are attempting to fight for better staff pay, like he was saying, like a non-partisan diplomatic answer. And I think as students, the SU president should support student causes as opposed to trying to further his own career.
Okay, and just what do you think is the most important part of your manifesto? Because I did read through it, and it does, you have put down a couple of the things that you're unhappy about with the university, so I was just wondering if you could highlight some of the main points that you'd like to change and what are those points?
For me, my manifesto was about highlighting the central problem that I think is at the heart of the university, and I think it's neoliberalism. I think the introduction of the £9,000 fees has meant that universities have tried to make up for a shortfall in finances by increasing student numbers. And that means that rather than having people attend university for subjects because they want to study them, they're now just trying to fill rooms and wet bodies. And I think that's the central issue, because we now have people who study subjects because they have lower grade requirements than the career that they want to go into.
Okay. Do you think it's the lower grade requirements that are a problem, or do you think it's that people that A levels are becoming easier and that's meaning there's more people applying for the positions?
Well, I don't know. I'm a bit suspicious of people who say grade inflation, etc., etc. I think the internet has changed the nature of in which we learn. So back in the day, it might have been harder to get an A because I would have had to know more information through self-study. But now I can look at example essays and so know what kind of information I need to put. So I don't think it's necessarily that A levels have got easier. I just think that universities are now scared of losing funding, so they're willing to take anyone they can get to make up for that finance.
Okay, so you've identified the problem of the higher fees and more people coming in, but how would you change that as the president? Because I was reading your manifesto, it says there's more that come in the coming weeks, but I printed a book this morning and there's not really that much saying what you do.
Basically, I've been working with Warwick and Actors because I want to sort of make higher education not just about who can attend because they have the privilege to attend because they went to a private school or whatever. And I think there is an easy way to do that. Yesterday at the presidential debates, they were talking about how the SU gets around 7 million. I'm not sure of the exact figure. But there's no reason why we can't work with the Coventry and Leamington city councils, or even with other schools, to try and put scholarships in place so that people, it would be a bit like the way the grammar schools work. So people who can attend universities will attend regardless of their financial situation. So university becomes for people who have the capability of learning, as opposed to who've been pushed by their parents into going into learning.
But wouldn't that just inflate the numbers even more if it's scholarships for the people who...
Well, no, because quite a lot of subjects here interview, but some subjects don't interview, and the subjects that don't interview tend to be the arts, because, for example, I do history, and for history they can't interview because if they started interviewing, then they'll probably get less people onto the course, which would mean that they'll have less money for the course, which would mean that it would be harder to teach. So if they had the money and didn't have to worry about student numbers, then they could concentrate on bringing people into university who want to study, as opposed to people who are just studying because their parents told them to go to university.
Okay, fair enough. And just picking out something here, you're focusing very heavily on the history aspect, because obviously you're a history student and that's what you've seen, but how would you, do you think this will disadvantage your campaign that you're talking about history so much?
I chose to concentrate on history because I think that's what's been mainly publicised. For example, the student-led lectures was something that when I was talking to the head of anti-sexism and the head of anti-racism, they were sort of calling them scat and stuff. And I wanted to highlight the fact that student-led lectures aren't necessarily strike-breaking, because I think there's a lot of problems within the history department that people who aren't necessarily involved wouldn't know about. So for them, they might see students breaking strikes, but they don't know that the standard of the teaching means that students do need to help each other to learn. And that's why I wanted to highlight it, because I don't like this idea of students who attempt to carry out their own learning being victimised and assaulted when people haven't actually took time to ask them why they've had to carry this out.
Okay. Do you think this problem in the history department reflects across all the other subjects?
Well, no, because I have friends who do a wide variety of subjects, but I think it's less of a problem of the history department, more of the humanities, in that my friend does computer science and they get £250 free printing credit.
Yeah.
Like, as a computer scientist, he hardly ever uses it. He lets me use his printer. Like, I think the problem is that there's so much concentration on STEM that now, like, the arts and the humanities are now just losing funding. And history is the only subject I can really say I've experienced, so that's why I concentrate on that. But I think it's just similar just for people in the humanities. People talk about how seminars don't have enough rooms, and some people have to sit on the floor. We have lectures where, like, there's not enough equipment, like, in comparison to other places. Like, in some seminars, I have a big TV that we can use for interactive learning, and on others, the room is far too warm because there's just windows and we're facing the sun. And I think we have to highlight the fact that the humanities is the one that's losing out, because the Warwick Business School can attract their own funding, economics can attract funding, mathematics can attract funding, but humanities isn't necessarily one of those subjects where a lot of money will be thrown at.
Okay, and what do you think is positive and what do you like about the other candidates' campaigns, so Alan and Fred?
What do I think is positive?
Yeah, what do you like about that campaign?
If I'm being honest, I'm not really sure, because, for example, Aaron, he seems like a perfectly nice person, but I'm not really sure where I stand on people making fun of democracy at a time when people are being murdered. I mean, like, maybe he's trying to highlight the fact that we shouldn't all be serious all the time, and I can appreciate that because it is near exam time and maybe people can, like, be uplifted by what he's doing. And Kat, I think she's run a very good campaign. She's been a very positive person, and I have nothing to say against her, but I just don't necessarily think that, like, what we need is yet another person who's gone from one sabbatical position to another, because I think that is kind of career politics. Like, by definition.
Okay, one final question. If this position wasn't paid, would you still run?
I would still run, because the main reason why I'm running is because Nigel Thrift, I'm coming for you.